Welcome, everybody, to tonight's call. This call is going to be a lot of fun, and I'm really glad that you're here. Between the Zoom call and the Facebook live stream, we have over 100 people so far tuning into this call. And we just did a little roll call, and we have people from Utah and Washington and London and Ontario and all over the country. So if you don't mind, put a little note in the chat here. Tell us where you're tuning in from: New York, Tennessee, Alabama, Michigan, Estes Park, Colorado, Mansfield, Texas. Oh, awesome. Okay. Well, welcome everybody to tonight's call. I'm going to be sharing my screen here, and I'm just going to kind of introduce the call as we get started. So there's a good chance that some of you don't know me. I see that we have some other really influential people on this call. I see Jim Barbecue. You can wave Jim from Colorado. Jim's become a bit of a celebrity on TikTok for reversing his type 2 diabetes with this protocol and getting off his medication. There's some other nice, Yvette Oxford, a nurse and diabetes educator, is on here. Yvette is massive on social media, and many people credit Yvette for fixing their chronic health problems over the last 6 to 12 months. And it's really, really fun to see so many others on here. My name's Trent, and there's a chance that many of you, again, don't know me, but I'll give a little introduction to myself as we get started here. So my name is Trent, and over the last little while, I've become, I guess, viral would be the best word on social media. I started talking about metabolic health, and I started talking about metabolic health not as a doctor or a scientist or a medical professional, but just as a regular guy who lost his father. So 6 years ago, my dad died from stage 4 colon cancer. When they found the cancer, it had spread all over his body, his liver, his lungs, it was everywhere. And my dad was, the greatest guy in the world. He was a hero of mine, and I loved him. And so when my dad got sick, I got really desperate and went down the rabbit hole trying to figure out how to save my dying father. My dad's problem, although he was the greatest guy in the world, is he had the world's worst diet. And any kind of stress was a trigger for him to turn to food. As a matter of fact, in my family's culture growing up, we had food as the reward system. Good job, Trent. You got an A on your test. Let's go get ice cream. Or good job, son. You scored a goal in the game. Let's go get a donut. And if you score 2 goals, then you can get 2 donuts, right? And this type of culture ultimately led me to struggle with overeating and snacking and sweet tooth addiction, right? Sugar cravings. And so when my dad got sick, I started to study what could be done to help my dad, a guy on a handful, not more than a handful, over a dozen prescription medications, who was insulin resistant, high cholesterol, high blood pressure. And as I started to learn things, I started to ask myself, why didn't anybody tell my dad these things 10 years ago? And so I made it a mission of mine to start spreading awareness about some very simple things that make all the difference in the world when it comes to metabolic health. And on tonight's call, we're going to talk about some of those things. We're going to share with you a protocol that works so fantastically that everybody should know about it. I believe that this is going to change the world, and I hope that by the end of this call, I show you enough proof that you are a believer as well. Now, to begin the call, I've invited a very special guest. This man was a stranger to me, somebody that I've never met, who saw my videos and decided, what the heck, I want to give this a shot. And recently heard a little bit about his story and asked him to be a guest on tonight's call. So this is Ron Hemmer, and Ron is in Michigan. Ron, tell everybody a little bit about yourself. What do you do for work? And where were you with your health before starting this protocol that we're about to talk about tonight?
I'm from Wisconsin, and I'm a DHI tech. I go around to farms and collect milk samples, and we send them to the lab. And I'm semi-retired, so I'm only working 4 days a month. But about a year ago in October, I was having a lot of health issues, and I went to a doctor, and they called me up when they got the blood work back, and I was fasting was 300 and over 300, and my AC1 was 13.2. And they wanted me to go on medicine, and I absolutely refused to go on medicine. And I need a new right hip, and I went to the bone and joint clinic up in Medford, Wisconsin, and he said, "Yep, you need a new hip." And they were going to schedule the surgery until they found out that I was a diabetic and I had high blood pressure and I was extremely overweight. And they said, "You got to get a primary doctor and get things under control." And I says, "Well, I would think about it." And they got me a primary doctor close by. And I really didn't start the program. I was kind of messing around. I saw one of your TikToks and I was messing around with it, but wasn't following it really close. And I went to the doctor and he wanted me on insulin and metformin, and I absolutely refused. I said that I was going to start this Feel Great system, and I started it on March 4th. And at that time, I was still extremely high glucose and AC1. And I just last Friday, I had a appointment with the life insurance, and they did blood work, and my glucose was 122 and my AC1 was 6.8. And I also, from March 4th, when I really started the program, until about, took me probably about two and 2.5 months, I lost 30 pounds. So it was just was amazing. And
So,
the tea has taken all my cravings away, and it's just, I can't believe it.
so in March, you started on the protocol with blood work that showed an A1C in the 13s, fasting
Yes,
glucose in the 300s, and
yes.
high blood pressure. And this recent blood work, you know, March until now, I mean, 6, 7, 8 months, 7 months, um, you have lost 30 pounds. Your fasting glucose is down to 120, low 120s, and your A1C is a 6.
6.8.
Okay, so it's in the sixes. So you've cut your A1C in half. Well,
And
that
my
is incredible.
my blood pressure, because he wanted to, back in March, he wanted me on blood pressure medicine. And when they tested me last Friday, I was 126 over 85, 134 over 86. They tested me 2, 3 times while they were interviewing me. And my good and bad cholesterol has completely switched around, because
Good.
that was another medicine they wanted to put me on, was to try to get my cholesterol under control. So,
Well, Ron, I when I talked to you earlier this morning on our call, um, it really is hard for me not to just get goosebumps listening to your story because I think of my dad, and he was kind of blindsided the way you were by his blood work. It doesn't you had no idea that you had type 2 diabetes, and all of a
no,
sudden doctors are telling you that you have type 2 diabetes, and so you get scared and you get uh most people just they freak out. And instead of freaking out, maybe you freaked out for a little bit, I don't know. But for you to just take action and to be so dedicated and committed to this, my hat is off to you. And I just want to say thank you for sharing your story. Um, as a matter of fact, in a moment, not now, but in a moment, I want to ask people that are on this call. There's over 100 people on the Zoom, a bunch more on the Facebook stream. I want to ask some people who have been on this protocol what it has done for them. And we'll get to that in just a minute. But Ron, your story has most certainly inspired somebody who is feeling discouraged and doesn't know what to do. And so thank you so much for being on this call. I promised you it would only be a 3 to 5 minute little spot, and I want to honor that. Is there anything else you'd like to say as we move on to the next part of the call before we move on?
I guess I just if just give it a try. I mean, that's I lost my wife a couple of years ago to cancer, so I don't have a fondness for doctors because basically they killed her with the chemo and the radiation and that. So I just wasn't about to go on any kind of medication. So if you're, and even if you are on the medication, give this stuff a try. It just, that's all I can say is give it a try.
Thanks so much, Ron. It is so awesome to have you on the call. And I just want to assure you that the results are progressive. As you continue to be consistent, the results, I mean, the best is yet to come. And certainly your results are jaw dropping. I mean, you basically have gone from a dangerous level of type 2 diabetes to being pre-diabetic. And our goal is to help you get completely out of the type 2 or pre-diabetic range now. So thanks for joining the call. Okay, everybody that's joining the call, we had a lot of people that got on over the last couple of minutes. Thank you for being on the call. The goal of this call is to talk to you about this protocol, to explain the science behind it and show you exactly why it works as well as it does. Then at the end, we're going to open up the call for some Q&A so that anybody that has questions about maybe their personal situation or loved ones they can ask questions and get answers to questions, and we can explain how to maximize your results on the protocol. Whether your goal is weight control or diabetes control or cholesterol control or blood pressure, or maybe you're struggling with things like PCOS or erectile dysfunction or any of the side effects and symptoms related to insulin resistance, we want to dig into that and help you get the results that you're looking for. So I invited a couple of really special guests on tonight's call, and I'm excited for them to be here. The first one is a registered dietitian that lives in Atlanta, Georgia. Now, this is a common theme. Everybody that I'm going to bring onto this call is always a former stranger. I mean, these are not people that I knew. These are people who, ever since I guess I started talking about this, have now learned about the protocol, fallen in love with the protocol, and are now talking about it to their patients, their clients, people that they love and care about because it works so well. So Shannon Davis is a registered dietitian and is an expert on metabolic health. Shannon, I know that you have fallen in love with the protocol and have put hundreds of people onto the protocol. So I guess to begin, as an RD, because who am I, right? I'm just some random guy talking on TikTok. As a registered dietitian, what is it about the protocol that you like, and why do you recommend this front line to many of the people that come to you and ask for help?
Perfect. Thank you for having me. Well, what do I like? It works. And, when I was introduced to this product, it was not to spread the word about it. It was for my own self. So I am a workout maniac. I know that's a little strange, but I love pushing myself to extremes and exercising hard. And I've done it my whole life. I try to practice what I preach. I eat healthy. And I've struggled, you wouldn't be able to tell, but I struggle with really, really high cholesterol. And so what better way to see if a product like this works than to try it on myself? And so I, last year, bought the product from Yvette, and she's my best friend, got on it and was just blown away. I've been prescribed a statin for probably 10 plus years and never taken it at all. That's just not for me. And so when I got my labs back, I really couldn't believe it, nor could my doctor. So my triglycerides went from 250 to 50. And my HDL, which you want above as high as possible, went from 53 to now 122. So I've never seen labs like this. Neither has my doctor. She was just blown away. Her husband's now on the product. But as far as a dietitian, so I've been one for 17 years, and I've worked in, most of my career is in dialysis. So people with kidney failure, which take an average of 19 pills per day. So unfortunately, by the time they get to me, there is no undoing. All I'm doing is basically keeping them as healthy as possible. I've worked in bariatrics. I've worked in organ transplant. So while I help people, I haven't helped them. If I would have helped them, I would have kept them from going to these extremes and from spending the rest of their life in a dialysis chair. And so if I had known about this product years ago, I feel like I could have saved so many patients. And that is my mission from now on, like to show people that there is an alternative. You know, unfortunately, and Dr. Midge can probably speak to this, when patients come to us and we give them a regimen, or we give them, you know, we want you to do A, B, and C, and they come back and we look at labs and the labs aren't what they should be. A lot of times the medical community says, wow, that patient's not listening to me, that patient's non-compliant. They just kind of get bumped into the non-compliant category. Well, I think as clinicians, we need to kind of take ownership in, it's not a patient's fault. It's the food industry. The food is broken, and it's our healthcare industry. And when we provide information, although it is from our best intentions, it may not be the best. And just because someone, you know, labs don't come back like they should, doesn't mean that the patient's not doing what they were supposed to be doing. And so when you have a product like Feel Great, number one, it's very easy. Anybody can do it. Anybody, I don't care who you are, can do it. Children can do it. So, and number two,
sorry, go ahead. I have something I want to interject, but go ahead. Go to number two.
No, I was just going to say in number two, it truly reverses conditions. And so we need to, as a medical community, we need to open our eyes to see what the root problem is. And it's not lack of compliance. It's not lack of willpower or discipline. It's broken food, and it's band-aiding it with pharmaceuticals. And if we target the problem with which is insulin resistance, with this product that's safe for anyone and easy to use, I think that the healthcare industry, I think we could change everything. I truly do. And so this is what I will do from now on. This is what I want to do. This is what I will teach every one of my patients, and every person that I can talk to.
Well, Shannon, I love that. Now, everybody that's watching this, these are not paid actors here. I mean, this is beginning to sound like a bit of a commercial for this protocol. So if you're feeling that way, I mean, this is coming from the heart. Now, we're going to get into the protocol. I'm going to explain it step by step. And we have an endocrinologist that's going to get on and talk all about insulin resistance. I mean, by the end of this call, you're going to know more about insulin resistance than 99.9% of the world. You're going to become an expert. But Shannon, here's a quick question before we move on.
Okay.
The people that you work with,
Mm-hmm.
what are their vices? What do they struggle with? And if you could just in 30 seconds or so tell us, how does this make it easier for them? How does this make willpower not a problem? That's probably not the best question.
Right.
I think
No,
you understand what I mean.
Exactly. So I think the biggest problem is food, and it's controlling what and how much we eat. And that is not this person's weak and this person's strong. It's the food that is in our environment is created to make us addictive, and it messes up our hormones. And if you can get a handle on your hormones, which is what this system does, you are now in control. Not these foods, not the addictive properties of these chemicals, but it's all truly about controlling insulin. When you control insulin, you will change your life. I mean, it really will change your life.
Okay. So thanks, Shannon. So I'm going to bring Shannon back on for the Q&A. It's such, I mean, I feel so fortunate as we are changing the world with this protocol to have people like Shannon who understand metabolic health at a deeper level than I do, just become raving fans of it. So I'm grateful for you, Shannon. Thanks for being on here. We have a guest that's about to come on who is an actual endocrinologist, and she is special. I love this woman, just like I love Shannon. And these are strangers who I've never met until, you know, the algorithm connected us, right? Just like most of you. And so we have a guest that's an endocrinologist. Now, for anybody, I'm just going to take a brief pause. For anybody that is here for the very first time, who has no idea what we're talking about yet, And we haven't gotten to the good stuff where we explain the protocol. That is coming here shortly. But what we want to do is make sure that we set the table and explain what insulin resistance is. That's a big word that many people, two words actually, that many people might hear and nod, but they really have no idea what we're talking about, right? And that's how I used to feel. And so we're going to bring on Dr. Midge. And first I need to find you, Midge. I've got a little bit of a glitch on my Zoom here, so I might need your help. Midge, are you able to unmute?
Yeah, I unmuted.
Okay, I'm going to remove my spotlight and hopefully I can add yours. So, okay, here we go. We're getting somewhere now. So Dr. Midge is an endocrinologist in Toronto, Canada. Dr. Midge has become a bit of a social media celebrity herself recently and has, if I do say so, I mean, she had an article written today on her by the New York Post where, you know, they were basically talking about how she is the doctor that's willing to say, hey, if you're trying to manage your blood sugar, mangoes, bananas, pineapples, fruits, right, grapes might not be the best idea. And I love that she is talking about this because we need to spread more awareness about it. So I've asked Dr. Midge to be our guest, and Dr. Midge is going to talk about insulin resistance. And Midge, if you don't mind, if you'd please start by sharing your story on this protocol thus far and why you and your family have been following it.
Hi, Trent, and everyone. Thanks for introducing me to this product and also getting me involved in this mission. So I'm Dr. Midge, and I'm going to talk to you about insulin resistance today. But first, I wanted to share my story and why I'm so excited about this system. My story goes back over 25 years, and at the time I was doing my pediatric residency training, and my father was diagnosed with type 2 diabetes. So Ron, I hear you. He'd ignored his symptoms for so long that by the time he was diagnosed, he was really sick and was actually hospitalized. And so I went into endocrinology because I wanted to understand what was happening to my dad and to try to help him. And fast forward 25 years later, my dad has most of the complications of diabetes. And the worst one is the dementia. And this is in Canada where we have free healthcare. So he had the best doctors, the best medications. And so I've seen firsthand what diabetes does to patients, what it did to my dad. And so I got really scared when in my late 40s, I started developing pre-diabetes. And I realized that I had to look beyond traditional medicine to figure this out for myself. And I found a doctor online who actually is a Canadian nephrologist. His name is Dr. Jason Fung, who was able to reverse type 2 diabetes in his patients with intermittent fasting and carb restriction. So I started doing that, and it was certainly helping, but I kept falling off the wagon because it's, it can be easier said than done. Then in October of 2022, I saw this fast talking guy on TikTok, Trent, and he was talking about gut health and fiber and insulin resistance, and it all really made sense to me. So I bought the product, and at that time, my hemoglobin A1C was about 6, and I'd been on metformin for a few years. When I got the product, I started right away, and I was one of the lucky ones because I started to feel fantastic within the week, but I was doing it to the letter. And within a month, I had lost about 10 pounds, and my energy, my brain fog, my mood was so much better. And then by 3 months, I'd lost 20 pounds. And just my recent blood work this past September, so almost a year after I started using it, my hemoglobin A1C was 5.4%. And this was without any metformin for over 3 months. So I got really excited, and I got my husband to start it. And he had a little little pushback, I have to be honest, because it wasn't his idea, it was mine. But once he got the hang of it, he was on board, and he started it and lost about 20 pounds, and his psoriasis disappeared. So that's my story and why I'm so excited about sharing this protocol with anyone who will listen to me as well. I'm gonna now go on and talk about insulin resistance. So I'll share my screen.
Perfect. We got it.
You got it? Okay, thank you. Okay. So thank you guys again. I'm really honored to talk to this about everyone and hopefully improve somebody's life and health. So this is my before and after. Before I talk about insulin resistance, I want to actually talk about some problems that everybody's aware of, because not everyone's heard about insulin resistance. Diabetes is increasing at an alarming rate. In the past 40 years, it has increased 5 times. In the world, there's over 1 billion people with type 2 diabetes and prediabetes. And just in the US alone, there's about 96 million people with prediabetes, and 80% of them don't know that they have it. GI issues, so gastrointestinal issues, are also a major issue in the world, with 1 out of 5 people having irritable bowel syndrome and 40% of all Americans having issues with heartburn. Another very serious condition is non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. Over 30 years ago, we didn't know, nobody had this problem, but now it's become the most common liver disorder, with 2 billion people worldwide having it. Obesity, worldwide obesity has tripled since 1975. In 2016, more than 1.9 billion people were overweight, and of these, 650 were obese. So some of the symptoms of insulin resistance include things like large waist circumference. You can have feeling of being hungry all the time, sugar cravings, brain fog, and anxiety and depression, and a lot of sexual function issues as well. So those are some. This is acne that you can get from insulin resistance. You can get skin tags. You can get these dark patches around your neck or in the folds of your armpits or your legs. And you can also get the abdominal obesity. And what's important here to highlight is that you can have the subcutaneous fat that everyone sees, but what we're really worried about is the visceral fat, the fat around our organs. So as I'm talking to you about the symptoms, you're all wondering, well, do I have insulin resistance? So here are a few questions you can ask yourself to find out. Do you have more fat around your belly? Do you have high blood pressure? Do you have a family history of heart disease? Do you have high levels of blood triglycerides? Do you retain water easily? Do you have dark patches or skin tags? Do you have a family history of insulin resistance or type 2 diabetes? Do you have polycystic ovarian syndrome or erectile dysfunction? If you answered yes to one of these questions, you likely have insulin resistance. If you answered yes to 2 or more, you most certainly have insulin resistance. And these are not my questions. These are questions from a very prominent scientist by the name of Dr. Ben Bigman. So I'm going to get into insulin resistance now that you know the scope of our problem. So this is the doctor that I kind of turned to online to help myself with my issues. He says this about insulin resistance. It is the most common health disorder worldwide, and yet most people are not familiar with the term insulin resistance, or if they are, they don't understand it. So before I talk about insulin resistance, I want to talk about insulin and what that is. Insulin is a hormone that's produced in the pancreas, and one of the most known functions of insulin is how it impacts our glucose. So when we eat something, our glucose will go up in our blood, and our insulin will come from the pancreas to deal with the glucose and bring it into our cells. But what most people don't know about insulin is that it has so many other functions, including things like fat synthesis, so fat storage. If insulin is high, you store fat, and if insulin is low, you lose fat. It also has effects on your protein synthesis. It will affect your electrolyte balance, and will deal with sex hormone production as well. So insulin resistance is the impaired response to the insulin hormone. And there are many causes, but there's three major causes. One is stress, one is inflammation, either from infections or smoke, or even big fat cells can cause inflammation. But the biggest factor is too much insulin. And this is all good news because there's very little sometimes we can do about stress or inflammation, but we can do something about too much insulin. And what happens when we get chronically elevated levels of too much insulin is that our body tunes it out. Just like if you heard the same background noise, you would tune it out, or when your kids are yelling in the background, you tune them out. That's what our body is doing with insulin. And as I talked about before, because insulin has so many functions and acts on every cell of our body, problems with insulin has widespread health issues and cause so many symptoms. So these are all the issues that insulin resistance can account for. And while you're looking at this, I'm just going to take a sip of my Unimari. So some things are obvious, like diabetes, also a major factor in heart disease and cancer. Sorry, that was my phone. It also is very relevant for our sexual health, and PCOS is actually insulin resistance of the ovaries. Erectile dysfunction is also something that people don't routinely associate with insulin resistance, but essentially it can be the first, sorry, my husband's talking on the background. Insulin resistance can actually be, our erectile dysfunction can actually be one of our first signs of insulin resistance. Hold on one second. I'm just gonna, can you hear him in the background?
We can't hear him, don't worry.
Okay. Hey, Steve, can you go downstairs? Okay. Sorry, guys.
Oh, good.
I'm not going to go into too much detail about the link between insulin resistance and lifestyle related diseases, mainly because Lindsay Van, our integrative medicine insulin resistance expert, does such a good job of this. And if you actually want to talk to somebody personally about these issues for yourself, this is where you can reach her. So I'm going to talk about, though, type 2 diabetes, because it's really the one disease of insulin resistance that most people know about, and it's very near to my own heart. Type 2 diabetes is insulin resistance that has gone on for many years, up to 10 to 15 years, in fact. So when we eat, like I said, the pancreas releases insulin, and the more carbohydrate-rich food we eat, the more and more insulin is released. Eventually, we can't keep up, and glucose levels stay elevated, and then we're diagnosed with diabetes. But what a lot of people don't understand, and I think what a lot of doctors don't even understand sometimes, is that the insulin levels are becoming more and more elevated, and we're becoming more and more insulin resistant. So even before the diagnosis of diabetes, there is disease going on in our bodies. So this hyperinsulinemia, or too much insulin, is causing many problems with our health. And the other kind of factor with insulin resistance is not that some cells are resistant to the insulin. Some cells remain very sensitive to it, but now they're dealing with too much insulin. So there's two sides to this issue. So how did we get here? Well, as Shannon talked about, it really is our modern food environment. We're dealing with a lot of ultra processed, high carbohydrate, low fiber foods. We've been told that fat is bad and we should replace it with things like grains and sugar. We're been told to eat every 2 to 3 hours to keep our metabolism up. 50 years ago, we didn't snack, but we're snacking all the time. They've also said to us that we should eat less and exercise more. And really, it's made us all feel like this is an individual lack of willpower problem. But really, judging by the numbers, this is a systemic problem. So this graph is very telling in the sense of how we get high insulin levels. So in blue is our glucose, and every time we eat, the glucose goes up. And then as a result, our insulin goes up and will bring our glucose levels shooting right back down and will make us feel hypoglycemic. And then we want to eat again. So we are eating every 2 to 3 hours, and our insulin, which tries to come back down, gets shot back right up again. And there you see in purple that the insulin is staying up the whole day. So where do we go from here? Because I've kind of painted a very bleak picture, but it's actually not very bleak at all. We need to do insulin lower strategies like Shannon mentioned. Great things are things like movement, stress reduction, controlling our inflammation, but a lot of these things are easier said than done. The biggest factor is our nutrition, what we put into our mouths. And so one of the things we need to do is to control our carbohydrates. And like I said before, that's what I tried to do, was restrict my carbohydrates, but I found this difficult to do it 100%. And the Feel Great system really helped me do this. The other thing we need to do is to really focus on whole foods and prioritize protein. And as well, focus on fiber. And once again, the Feel Great system is a great tool to help us do this. We need to fill our diets back with good fats. I don't mean trans fats, but I mean good, solid animal fats and olive oil and coconut oil and avocado oil. And the other thing we're doing, as you could see by the previous slide, is that we're eating too often, and we need to start intermittent fasting and giving our bodies a break. And the Feel Great system is also a great tool to help us do this. So just a few takeaways. Insulin resistance is directly or indirectly the root cause of most non-infectious chronic diseases. Insulin resistance is a lifestyle-related disease. We have to be aware of the symptoms that I discussed in the past. They're actually not so silent. And once again, there are issues that are going on in our bodies before our glucose levels are elevated and we're diagnosed with prediabetes or diabetes. So don't let that normal hemoglobin A1C level make you feel like you're doing okay, because that's not the fact. Medications for our symptoms are not always the answer. I mean, it might be a short-term answer, but it's not always the long-term answer. What we need to do instead is focus on our lifestyle changes. We can reverse insulin resistance, but if you wait too long, some of the complications we can't reverse. So, to get a head start is the best thing to do. And we need to, again, focus on insulin lowering strategies. And the Feel Great system is going to be that tool that's going to help you make these lifestyle related changes so much easier. So, as a parting note, I just want to really commend anyone that's on this call that has started to use the system and gotten great results, because changing our lifestyle and doing something different is really difficult. So I really want to commend you for that. And for everyone else who's new to this system and thinking about it, I just want you to, I want you to know that it's the best thing that I've done for my own health, and that you really should give it a try, just like Ron said.
Thanks
That's
so
it.
much, Midge. I really appreciate you coming on here Dr. Midge.
Yes,
And
sir.
just so everybody's clear, this is me asking some very kind people, Ron, a stranger, to come and spend his Wednesday evening sharing his story with a bunch of you who are strangers to him, and Shannon and RD and Dr. Midge, an endocrinologist, asking them without any compensation to please do me a favor and come talk about this. And it feels like you've been watching an infomercial so far. They are so complimentary of this. Now, I want to get to the protocol and explain exactly how it works. I'm going to do that. And I also want to ask everybody for a favor. So, what I would ask as I get ready to share my screen and dig into the protocol is if you or somebody in your household has been using this protocol, whether for a week or a month or even a year, and you have noticed a measurable difference. Now, I don't want anybody to exaggerate, okay? If you personally or somebody you love has noticed a measurable difference, if you would please do me a favor and just write a sentence or two in the comments as I prepare to share the protocol, that would be wonderful. There are many people on this call who have not started the protocol, many who are skeptical, and this has gone so well, and the endorsements from Shannon and Ron and Midge have been so glowing that it sounds like this is all just, a setup. So if you would do me that favor, again, don't exaggerate. I want to read some of these so that everybody on this call can see that this is going to change the world. And I'm not kidding. We started to get sick when we started eating ultra-processed foods and eating them all the time. With a little bit of fiber and fasting, we can get oftentimes unsick. Okay. Now I'm going to share my screen. Well, let's read a couple of these real fast. Oh my gosh. These are pouring in fast. Okay. Tony, I've lost 40 pounds, 21 inches. I've reversed my type 2 diabetes. My A1C is from a 10.7 down to a 6.3, all in 90 days. Blood pressure and cholesterol looking good now. I've reversed my type 2. Jim says, I've reversed my type 2 diabetes on the system. So has my mother and my mother-in-law. We are all off our statin medications too. And I've been fortunate enough to watch so many other people I've met on TikTok say the same. Tanya Lee says, off blood pressure medication, off diabetes medications. I've lost 28 pounds, more energy, no more napping. Hope has been restored, whereas I felt hopeless 8 months ago. Alan, I'm off 6 medications because my blood work has improved so much. My A1C is now in the 5s, and I've lost 72 pounds. Way to go, Alan. Tyler Carpenter, off my insulin, off my oral medication, lost 20 pounds, energy up, mood more stable. Rafaela Wilson, my husband no longer needs his statin and is down 20 pounds. Megan O'Brien, lost 15 pounds, more energy. Cassie, mom was 1 week from being on dialysis, was also diabetic. She is now off all of her diabetic medications and changed her kidney function for the better. And right now is not in direct fear of being on dialysis. I hope she avoids it. That would be amazing. Becky, down 30 pounds, no more brain fog or restless leg syndrome, no more migraines, more energy, sleeping better. Rebecca says, I'm trying this product for a month. Rebecca, I hope that you'll use it properly and consistently. If you use it properly and if you're consistent, it won't let you down. And when you go to your doctor or when you step on the scale or when you just check in with yourself looking in the mirror in 90 days, if you have been consistent, you will see a measurable, dramatic improvement. In fact, the manufacturer that makes the protocol will give you a full refund. You can use every packet in the box for 90 days, and if you don't love it, just get a refund. I've lost 20 pounds since September, lost 25 pounds, A1C from a 9.4 to a 5.7, down 61 pounds. My mother's off all her cholesterol meds and lost. Husband and I have been on the system 9 months. I'm down 22 pounds, multiple inches. My husband's down 30 pounds. Cholesterol back to normal, no longer on a statin. Okay, guys, I'm going to have to skip. There are literally 21 more messages that I haven't gotten to yet. I want to read these all. If you've got somebody in your family or a loved one who is skeptical, I hope that you'll screenshot a couple of those and send them to your family member because this is the real deal. Thanks for all the proof, guys. I really appreciate that. Okay, so what is this protocol? Let's do it quick. What is this protocol? How does it work? How can you maximize your results with it? Okay, so many of you have been watching me ad nauseum on social media and are probably tired of hearing Trent talk. So I'm going to go quickly and then we're going to get into the Q&A. So here's how the protocol works. This is what we are doing. If this is breakfast and this is lunch and this is dinner, most of us are skipping one meal a day. Bye-bye breakfast. Now, by skipping a meal a day, we're doing what Midge and Shannon talked about. We are forcing our insulin levels to be low. Insulin is low. We intentionally get our insulin levels low so we can regain some insulin sensitivity. That's the opposite of insulin resistance. But while we keep our insulin levels low, we are not starving. Now you say, well, we've got to be starving. We're fasting. But when we are fasting, we are not starving. We are switching fuel sources. Instead of burning food for fuel, we are burning body fat for fuel. Our body will get the calories that it needs, but it's going to get them from our love handles or our stomach or wherever we carry our weight. So most of us are skipping one meal a day. Now, you do not have to skip a meal, but for best results, skip a meal and stretch that fast. Magic happens when that happens, okay? Then, prior to meals, Shannon and Midge both alluded to this, we are focusing on the right types of plant fiber. No drugs, no medications. When you have the right types of fiber with food, fiber is the very thing that has been stripped out of food. When we talk about processed foods, a processed food is a food that's been stripped of its fiber, okay? So we're focusing on prioritizing fiber. And when we have fiber before our meals, instead of our insulin and blood sugar spiking like it otherwise would, it is limited. And this fiber is also very satiating. It fills you up. It makes it so you don't want to eat as much. And so this helps burn more calories and more fat throughout the day. Now, I know what some of you are thinking. Well, that sounds good, but this sounds really hard. I mean, fasting, right? That is hard. And if I could just eat more veggies and fruits and seeds and herbs and fiber before my meals, well, I would have never had this problem in the first place. But life is hard, and it's hard to eat clean all the time. I mean, I can't just have a garden salad in my back pocket full of fiber ready to whip out before my lunch every day, right? That's expensive, it's inconvenient. So this is what we're doing to make this super duper easy. This protocol works like this. When we skip a meal, we save a little bit of money. We save whatever we were going to spend at Starbucks or McDonald's or wherever, right? We're going to take the money we saved and we're going to use it to buy something that will make this much, much easier. So the Unimate is used in the morning. You sip it. Or anytime you're trying to avoid food. When I sip the Unimate, it makes me forget about food. It makes fasting so easy. Now, the chlorogenic acid in the Unimate, this is natural, but the chlorogenic acid in the Unimate is a novel insulin sensitizer. It potentiates insulin action similar to the therapeutic action of metformin, but it's all natural. It also is very similar to the GLP-1 like Ozempic and Mounjaro and Wegovy, but with no side effects. It helps eliminate hunger. Then before meals, while we can't have a garden salad in our pocket, we can have a blend of fiber in our pocket. This blend of plant fiber is about to change the world. When you take it before your meals, well, when taken before meals, blood sugar doesn't spike the way it otherwise would. Insulin doesn't spike the way it otherwise would. Cholesterol is controlled. Triglycerides are controlled. It improves our gut health. And it is extremely satiating, which helps people who struggle with overeating, like myself. And so by simply having the fiber before meals, now the fiber, you're going to shake up quickly. You're going to put it in about half a glass of water or a half a water bottle, shake it up, drink it immediately. This will start to thicken and expand. You want that to happen in your stomach, right? This is totally cost neutral. You're just taking the $5 you saved, skipping a meal, and that covers the cost of the protocol, and it's fully guaranteed. I went on the protocol, and my love handles just started to shrink. I started talking about this on social media, and people started sending me pictures and stories and blood work. I've lost 50 pounds. I've lost 100 pounds. I'm off my medications. I don't have PCOS anymore. My Hashimoto's isn't bothering me anymore. I no longer have type 2 diabetes. I started to get hundreds of these messages. Okay. And many of you have now added to these messages today in the chat. Thank you for being here. That is how the protocol works. Now, for people that want to accelerate their results, you can stretch your fast. You can do more than 1 Unimate per day, or you can sip it and stagger it slowly throughout the day to help you stretch your fast. This speeds things up. Okay. You can also have more fiber before your meals. If you struggle with, appetite control or overeating like I do, the fiber leaves you feeling fuller for longer and slows the digestion of your food. Okay. Now I'm going to bring Shannon back and Midge back, and we're going to wrap up this call with some Q&A. Some of you have been waiting patiently on this call to perhaps ask a question. Maybe something that you would like to ask, and if so, you can raise your hand and we will bring you onto the live call, or you can put your question in the chat and we will address it. I'm going to play quarterback here for the next 5 or 10 minutes as we answer questions and shovel some of these to Midge, some to Shannon, and some of them I'll take myself. So the first question from Monica: what is the age one could start this? So I'll handle that one. I have an 8-year-old, a 5-year-old, and a 3-year-old. All of them ask for sips of balance and Unimate every day. I give them sips. I don't have them on, the protocol because they're little kids, but I've seen several adolescents, several teenagers who are struggling with early insulin resistance, early obesity, go on this protocol, and it has worked wonders for them. So, Midge or Shannon, unless you have a conflicting opinion to that, I think it's fine and safe for people. There's no medication in it, no drugs. It's all natural. If your kid can have a salad with a bunch of different fibers in it, the balance shouldn't bother them.
I want to add to that, Trent. I have several customers who have their children on the Unimate that struggle with ADD at school, and they don't want their children on, the Vyvanse or the Adderall, and they're on Unimate and they're doing excellent. So.
Okay, awesome. So Jack Evans, I'm a little different. I had acute pancreatitis in March. I was hospitalized for 4 months. Sorry to hear that, Jack. And lost 60 pounds due to lack of nutrition. I'm 6'2" and I was 235, and I'm not trying to lose weight. I have very little pancreas function and have to take enzymes to eat. I want to use this protocol for gut health. I'm also pre-diabetic and on a statin, 6.0 A1C and 111 glucose. My question is, how will balance interact with my added enzymes? Do either of you look forward to answering that question?
I mean, I'm happy to, but Dr. Midge probably is.
Go ahead, Shannon.
You go ahead, Shannon.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
It's just food. The balance isn't going to change the action of the enzymes. So it's just fiber. Just like if you ate vegetables, the pancreatic enzymes are it's not going to make a difference. Midge, Dr. Midge.
I think this is really exciting for you to try this system. And I agree with Shannon. This is just fiber. I think there is a list of things that you shouldn't have with food or fiber. But other than that, this is a very exciting protocol for somebody like you to do, Jack. So very exciting.
Next question is this something that is safe for somebody who struggles with hypoglycemia? I think that this is a fantastic protocol for that. So I'll handle this one. And I'm not your doctor, so, if you have special conditions, Midge is not your doctor, neither Shannon, you should go talk to your doctor. So if you're concerned, we always want to encourage you to talk with your doctor. That's what you should do. However, it's important for me to explain how fiber works. So when we eat processed foods, our blood sugar spikes. You see that black line spiking? That's blood sugar. Midge talked about this. Blood sugar spikes, and then when insulin comes in, blood sugar crashes. Now, blood sugar crashes creates hunger. It triggers hunger. This is hypoglycemia. Hypoglycemia is when blood sugars get too low. Now, hypoglycemia was likely never a problem. We don't know what it was like thousands of years ago, but it was likely never a problem before ultra processed foods, because fiber's whole role is to not only eliminate the blood sugar spike, but to also eliminate the blood sugar crash. So instead of a spike and a crash, the fiber, the balance is going to make a more moderate, more slow release of the blood sugar, eliminating the spike and the crash and avoiding that hypoglycemia. So by keeping you feeling fuller for longer and slowing the digestion of the carbohydrates, the hypoglycemia often goes away. I've had lots of people who were worried about fasting due to hypoglycemia, but when they bring fiber to their diet, it's not as big of a problem usually. And by the way, our bodies, if we have lots of excess body fat and our body needs some glucose, it will burn that fat for glucose. That's what the body was made to do. Okay. I am not diabetic, but I do have an eGFR of 75. Would this help with that and LDL levels?
So should I go?
Go ahead.
Yeah,
So GFR is the function of your kidney, and 75 is not a terrible number. And so this product is just going to benefit that. As far as LDL goes, there's been a lot of controversy about LDL. We used to always think LDL was the bad guy, and that's not necessarily the truth. There are different types of LDL. So LDL is just a little carrier. So it's a low density lipoprotein. It moves things around. And so you can have big fluffy LDL and then the small dense guys. What's really more important than looking at LDL is looking at your triglyceride to HDL ratio, which Dr. Midge talked about. So you take your triglycerides, which are a measure of the fat in your blood, and you divide your HDL by that. And that ratio you ideally want below 1.5. And if that number is high, then, avoiding carbohydrates, or not avoiding, limiting processed carbohydrates, fiber is your best friend, trying to stay away from simple sugars. Even fruit can raise triglycerides, and I am proof of that. So following the fasting, using the fiber and the protocol, you're going to improve both of those. And if you're very, very concerned with cholesterol, I recommend getting a calcium score, a cardiac calcium score.
Awesome. Thanks, Shannon and Mitch, for that. Okay. So somebody asked, is there a prescribed or recommended way to eat while on this program? I would encourage you to do your best to eat in the direction of your goals and not against your goals, right? And so if your goals are to, if you want to audition for the next Baywatch season this summer, then you want to eat like that, right? I have just put in the chat a food guide that shows low glycemic foods, the foods that you should focus on and enjoy, medium glycemic foods, which would be foods to eat in moderation, and foods to avoid. Now, from time to time, you may have some of the bad foods on that list, and I would encourage you to consider doing 2 packets of balance before you do those foods and to try to limit that as much as possible, right? The good news is when you get fiber in your gut and it starts healing your gut, I found that my sugar cravings have substantially subsided. So, okay, couple of people on Facebook and here in the chat asking, how does this work for a type 1 diabetic? So lots of people with type 1 diabetes have used this protocol and they love it. One of my best friends of 20 years has used it and loves it. I was going to share my screen, but we're about out of time, so I'm going to cancel the screen share. With type 1, there's obviously insulin that you're going to need to take because your body does not make any insulin. But if we can avoid the blood sugar spikes and the blood sugar crashes, that means you would need to supplement less insulin. Uh-oh.
Do you have any?
Yeah. I would completely agree. I have a person on my team. She's a type 1 diabetic and a dietitian. And she has been using this protocol. I have several other customers who are type 1 that are on the protocol. While it can't reverse your type 1, what it can do is cut down the amount of insulin needed. They all have reduced their insulin by about 20%, which is going to prevent you for later in life becoming a type 1, now insulin resistant type 2 at the same time, if that makes sense, because you can become resistant to the insulin that you're injecting. And now you don't have your own insulin and you're resistant to the exogenous insulin. So it just keeps your cells sensitive to insulin. It can allow you to cut down on the amount that you use, which is a good thing. And she fasts, there's different schools of thoughts about type 1 and fasting, and she fasts. She doesn't do long-term fasts, but she does 12 to 16 hours every day and does just fine.
Awesome.
I got kicked off of my own Zoom. So I
We
think that's
took care
probably a
of
good,
it.
thank you. I think that's probably a good cue to wrap this up. Guys, thanks for being here. We really appreciate Ron and Midge and Shannon. Thank you guys all for being here. But for the rest of you who are listening in, we need you. This protocol is better than anything I've ever seen. If my dad had found out about this protocol 10 years ago, he would be alive today. He would know his grandkids. And you've got a loved one that you care about who, if you invite them to one of these calls, if you spread awareness about this protocol, they will thank you later. And if they just, look at that thread of stories from all of you who have been on this protocol. Our goal, our mission with this is to change the world. And what started with just a couple of us, now we've got 100, 150 people between the Facebook live stream on this call. We need more people spreading awareness, and we love you for being here. Come back anytime. Now, if your question wasn't answered, or if you're struggling, feel free to reach out to me privately. You all should probably have my email, or you can reach out to whoever invited you to this call and say, hey, I've got a question for Trent, and they can relay it to me. But we want you to win with this. We want you to have a fantastic experience and feel great. So thanks so much for being on the call. We'll see you guys next Wednesday. Have a good night, everyone, wherever you are in the world. We'll see you.